In this video, we bring you a lot of randomness with our Q&A from West Coast Swing Online. What's up, everyone? Brian B. and...
Miss Emily.
And Miss Megan.
And... Ben Howard behind the camera.
Mr. Ben.
Mr. Ben. He's done a great job. Interesting stat. The only mistakes once we get up and running with our live videos happen when Ben got us up and running and we were running over a little late. And he's like, you guys got this? Yeah, we're up and running. We're live. We're good. And then Ben left and inexplicably twice, something went wrong. Mic went out. Camera went out.
He's not allowed to leave now.
He's not allowed to leave. Does a great job. So thank you, sir. So this time we've got some questions kind of prepped. I've got some emails up. But let's give you the State of the Union because I also know that it takes a little while for you guys to get rolling and get your questions. So what's going on here in Louisville, Kentucky? The same. We're on lockdown.
It was a really pretty day. The sun.
Yeah, it was super good. How about you, Miss Megan?
Yeah, no, didn't do much. Worked on the computer.
Bingo. Because we are working for you guys. Partially because we love you, and the other half is there's nothing else productive to do, and we're having a good time with this. So this is really fun. So thank you guys for interacting. It's been really cool to spend more time interacting via email and the live videos. And something of note that's been really kind of cool, we got a bunch of emails today about this, two in particular that said that they were enjoying. I'm going to read one of them. Can you pull up the Dance Level email?
The Dance Level?
Yeah, because I forwarded this email. Oh, and there it is. So I'm going to read this because I think this is really cool, and this is something we always say that, you know, we're learning all the time, and even though we've done online videos for almost 5 years now, and we've taught a lot of lessons and all that stuff, we're learning all the time, and so these live interactive classes have been different. They've taught me something different about the utility of learning in this format that I didn't really understand. So this person writes in, hello, West Coast Swing team. I wanted to say thank you. I've learned more from your 30-minute virtual lessons along with the ladies' styling videos I purchased last year compared to all the group classes and private lessons I've taken. I'm so happy I subscribed to the yearly membership. Shout out, full access, all in. We appreciate that. The value is tremendous. I've been struggling to improve my skills and found your videos have helped me advance my dancing ability. I look forward to continuing my dance journey. That's about as awesome of an email as you can get. But we've had other ones that kind of echoed the fact that the live videos gave them a unique format that in a regular video, you can't ask your questions, right? You can go at your own pace, but you can't ask your questions. In a class, you can ask questions, but we sort of run it like the military, right? Do this, play music, and everyone's stuck standing at attention and no one can like run off in the corner and work on something a little bit extra. But the live videos allow you to kind of jump in and out of the class and spend time with what you want and hop back in and ask questions. So
Less intimidating.
yeah, it's less intimidating, right? If you're an introvert.
Yeah, no, I mean, lessons on the video. You don't have to talk to anybody.
Megan, you really have more of a stellar personality than that. I think you'd be energized not being around people. Anyway, so that's the lesson that I learned off of these live videos kind of today is how the interactive process, and also the same thing that's true of the learning process, and I say this all the time about sticking with a teacher, because you guys have been kind of stuck with us. Like our methodologies, people are understanding kind of the way we approach things and the way we teach things, and so people are asking questions which would be like, my next step. Like we did the practice line dance and someone said, can you do that and count it in 2-beat increments? I was like, brilliant. That's a great thing to do. Can you do that and count in straight eights? Brilliant. That's a great thing to do. You know, maybe not for everyone, but depending upon where you are in the learning process. There were some questions last night that were very like in sync. Oh no, the beginner video. Was it the beginner video? The 7 patterns?
That's not beginner.
No. Someone asked a question that was...
Oh,
things that you can do as a beginner to improve, and I didn't actually talk about the stretch and the anchor step, and someone jumped in and said, hey, what about the stretch and the anchor step? So that was pretty cool. Do you have anything? What's going on with you, Miss Emily? Catch us up.
A whole bunch of the same thing. Ben and I actually got to like come in and dance for a little bit today. If you guys haven't seen the Pro 2-Step video challenge that went around, that was posted, and now we're going to do another one of those. So Phase 2 Nightclub is coming up next. So we're pretty excited about that.
So what is the two-step challenge? And I bet Ben's going to find that link on Facebook and dunk it in the description below in the chat box.
Gonna dunk it. Or smash it, because that's what you do to the subscribe button on YouTube. Anyway. So the Pro Two-Step Challenge, I believe, was set up by two of our country pros, Rachel and Eric Nava. Rachel Mercedes, fast car, and Eric Nava. And so basically, each pro did a phrase of a specific song, and they recorded it. No counting, anything. They just danced it, and then they nominated a couple, and that next couple had to pick up where they left off and build the phrase from there, and then we completed the song. It was Alibi from A Star Is Born. So super cool to see the different styles of choreography that everybody had. Some of the backdrops were pretty cool. It ended with this like amazing mountain in the back.
Rocky Mountains.
Was it the Rocky Mountains? Is that where they are? The Rocky Mountains in the back, so that was pretty epic. And so they are going to the Bryants? Jeremy and, can't think of her name.
Keep going.
The Bryants. They are going to nominate Kelly.
Kelly, yeah.
There we go. They're going to nominate the next couple to start the nightclub.
Bingo, so that's pretty fun. Ben's going to share that. So, Cindy jumped in on YouTube and said the live lessons with immediate response and adaptations are so beneficial. Yeah, like we've really, we want to jump in and do this, and it's new to do them live, and I think we've now done, this is the 5th week at 14 plus a week, so that's a lot of videos that we've done, and we're getting better at it, hopefully, and you guys interacting is really helping us shape the type of content that we're doing.
And it's more fun.
And it's more fun. It's more fun when it's interactive. A lot more fun. So, we have some questions. Do we have any questions from your side, Ben, or shall we jump into what's...
We have 2. So the first one...
2 questions.
On something like this. So Lindy Hop has the Shim Sham, and the California routine is a partner dance, so dances everybody knows. Is it possible for West Coast Swing to have a partner dance with some decided song that everybody would be able to do and then go do in a competition or something?
Yeah, so the question is, it's very prevalent in the country world, and even I think, not square dancing, but round dancing. What's the other country dance form?
Square dancing?
It's not square dancing. Contra dancing. Yeah, they have basically sets. They call them in the country world, they call them pattern partner dances. So you'd have like a 32 count phrase that you would repeat. So if you wanted to do the schottisch, you're partnering with someone, right? But the steps are almost like line dance steps. The steps are predetermined. I'm kind of leading Emily, but the steps are predetermined, and then as we get better at it, we can add our own little style, and then everyone is doing the same set of steps, and in the schottisch, it progresses counterclockwise around the outside of the floor. So this person was asking, Lindy Hop has the Shim Sham, and could there be one for West Coast Swing? And yes, and West Coast Swing sort of tackles it differently, I think. Number one, with the flash mobs that became popular, maybe, going on 10 years ago? It's been a while. So flash mobs and then swing teams where people are having swing teams all over the world learning the same set of choreography, and then what happens is when those people meet up and they play that particular song at an event, everyone jumps out there and they know the choreography. So to a small degree that exists. I think the reason why one hasn't stuck is, well, why does a song become popular? You know, like what the one-hit wonders. Why does everyone know Ice Ice Baby and not another song from Vanilla Ice, right? Like, why did that song stick? So I'm not sure why things stick, and no one single thing has stuck. And I think even if we were to attempt making one stick, you'd never know how to catch lightning in a bottle. So I don't know that we could convince the whole world to love this one thing. But check out some of the swing teams and the flash mob stuff, because those, for at least a period of time, you know, for that summer, that spring, that portion of the year, lots of people know them. But then what happens is, like all of us, we want to learn new stuff, right? Like we just want to learn new stuff, and so the choreography changes the next year, and it's classes, and people learn the new thing, and it changes, and nothing sticks. But it's a cool idea. Like, one of the things I've wanted to do is the Rueda drill,
There are West Coast Swing mixers, there's some pretty common ones. Not everyone knows them though. That's the issue. So if you don't know a right side pass, a whip, if you're like a super beginner, that's where it gets a little tricky to kind of teach that in rapid fire and have everyone switch partners and do the mixer and all of that. So I've seen a couple of common ones, but not everyone knows them.
Carmichael has a non-dance related question. What is the focal length that you guys use when shooting the lessons? So like the lens, we've used both a Canon and a Sigma lens. This one's like a 18 to 35 millimeter. The other one was like
130.
Yeah, whatever the low number, 18 to like 135. I like the Sigma lens a little bit better.
That's what we've been using recently.
Yeah, so that's what we do. And we are right now probably like 7 feet from the camera with the background blown out with a low aperture, fairly low ISO.
Yeah,
Not centered.
we're learning.
There you go. So yeah, we're learning. We're getting pretty good at this. There you go.
One question.
Another question.
So the move from the class, the one that went into the cuddle, do you want to address that here?
Let's address it. So we have, this is a little random. We had a move, and the terminology got a little crisscross, but someone brought us the moment in the video where we did this particular move, and what was it? And so we were talking about the outside roll. And so let's show the move and quickly, and I'll jump back and kind of discuss it.
Go back
You
as
see me?
far as possible.
Yeah.
And you see your feet. Is that what's important?
Right there, is that seeable?
Yep.
So this was the move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we were discussing dancing an outside roll. So we're going to demo the outside roll. Then we took that to an open out, and then from the open out, we took it to a reverse whip. So the outside roll would be this. So that's the position we were talking about setting up, and then we took that lead into an open out for a walk and a walk where I stepped across the slot, and then we let a reverse whip with a regular ending.
We really hope that's your move.
I think that's the move. That was at the 20 mark of the video.
I hope that's your move. Oh.
There we go.
You can see
So
if it works.
we're kind of on the video. Yeah, we're super dark.
Probably not on Facebook.
Cindy asked, do we have lessons in Lindy and Charleston? No. Quite frankly, just not our area of expertise. We have actually, on that note, been trying to curate, find a Lindy Hop teacher. We had a really good one that moved. So we looked.
Yay, that was the move.
That was the move. Yay. So we're looking at finding a Lindy Hop teacher that kind of has our same philosophy in teaching stuff functional and basic and very doable. So that's something that might happen in the future, but right now, especially with the lockdown and people not able to travel, it's on hold. But we did take a little bit of time looking into it, and if that teacher who still lived here, when I went hunting for her, I realized she had moved. So there you go.
Emily Schumann, if you're watching.
Emily Schumann, if you're watching, come teach us some Lindy Hop. Call us. So we had a couple of questions that came in via email today. And typically we're going to answer the email stuff. If it's dance related, we're going to put it all in a dance video on Fridays. So we did one of those earlier this week. But if we can do it, if it's just a Q&A style here, we can answer it here. So the question was a little bit off our discussion, like how do dance studios survive? How does the dance industry survive the coronavirus, right? Because we're in an industry that we're in groups of people and we're sharing partners and touching and breathing on each other and creepy. So what about private lessons with instructors? Private lessons that have been with instructors for competitions. What's your suggestion?
So competitive students?
Yeah, so like competitive students, when you're doing your lessons with your instructors, what's your suggestion? Masks, gloves. Some studios have been doing this with success. I talked about it a little bit last night. You know, the safety issues and what you should and shouldn't be doing are kind of outside my area of expertise. So, you know, at least for here, we're going to default to what Andy says.
We listen to Andy. You
That's our
can't be
governor.
doing
He's like
that.
he's He's like the good old Mr. Rogers. Yeah, so I'm going to default to kind of what we're told, right? As they start to open things up and industries like ours are opened up and they give us the suggestions, that's what we're going to kind of abide by. So because we haven't kind of got to that point yet, I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if we're going out to restaurants and all the servers are wearing masks and gloves, then that might be something that dance teachers have to do. Off the discussion last night, the thought of having to dance all day long with a mask on was a little horrifying. Pretty bad. I have a friend who's a respiratory therapist, and so I reached out to her, Kara, and so I said, yeah, how are you doing? Like, this is your wheelhouse of taking care of people with respiratory things, and I thought she'd be freaked out. I was worried about her, and she didn't care. She's like, we got this stuff all the time. It's like, to her, she's just like, I've dealt with it. So for those of you guys who are in that situation, bless your hearts, because I don't want to dance with a mask and gloves on, and these people have to save people's lives and risk infection and all sorts of crazy stuff. So I will default to the professionals. Same person said, competitions could be held with live streams, maybe only having the competitors. People could pay to watch the live streams like sports is going to be. And we talked last night about paying attention to live sports. At least I'm paying attention to live sports to see how they handle things, right? Because if people aren't allowed to go into arenas, then the likelihood of them allowing us to have, 500 or 1,000 people at a dance event is likely not to be. And then the public perception of getting people to show up to those dance events. But what a lot of the independent organizations, so the WWE and the UFC, that are just like single entity owned businesses where they don't have a bunch of franchises to manage in different cities, they are probably going to be the first ones. In fact, the WWE is convinced Florida that they are an essential business. Yeah, and so they're running all the things. Now, how does that relate to competitions? And Ben and I had this conversation very, very early on. Like, could you have some sort of a feedback or competition? And I thought a little bit more about it last night and this morning. And it's really hard. It's really hard. They've done a couple of things with West Coast Swing where they've had like little challenges where people put in videos and they kind of bracketed them like a tournament style bracket and people voted. But one of the good things was anyone could submit their video, right? Even if you weren't a ranked competitor, you didn't have to be in a specific division. You could anyone could do it. That was kind of cool. The difficult part is apples to apples comparison. If I'm looking at two competitors on a well-lit floor, it's easy to see. If both competitors are on a dimly lit floor, they're both on the same dimly lit floor. But if one person is using a Sigma lens with a focal direction of blah, 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 and the video is really cool, and the other person has got an iPhone from across the studio, it's not the best comparison. So I think, and then the logistics of that from any kind of a competition, judges and competitive stuff, I think if anyone does it, it'll be much more like your two-step challenge thing. It'll just be, some people putting it out there socially and some people will join along. But I don't think you're going to use I don't think you're going to see that in a mass scale or any official kind of competition. I don't see it yet. And then getting people to pay for it, that's very, very difficult. It's very difficult.
People do it for Worlds. That's a more prestigious event. Like,
yeah.
Less people go to Worlds. It's a week-long event. So I think doing it for a weekend event might be
watching a live stream.
Watching it live stream, yes. Sometimes the video quality isn't the best, and so to watch it for an hour or so to watch your favorite dancer dance, it might not be worthwhile for the money. I don't know.
Yeah, that's difficult. And I have a friend who's obsessed with live streaming dance events, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. The tech is a little bit of a struggle, bandwidth and things like that. So it's difficult to get a good product out, even for the companies like Flow Dance that do this. And Flow Sports is actually the bigger thing. They do a lot of niche sports, and that's who's live streamed the Country Western World Championships. And those guys, that's all they do, and they still have struggles. So for an even smaller entity to try to pull it off would be pretty tricky. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But who knows? More variations of basics. That is a good idea. I think that came off of variations from the 7 basic patterns that we learned a couple of days ago. Yeah, that's a good idea. One of the things I would like to, that's a good idea. I think we've got the next 2 weeks of videos planned out, but your question could actually land on either maybe our Friday Q&A style video where we kind of go through some stuff if we got some time there, and it actually might end up as a standalone video because it just becomes an endless thing. You know, if you do this pattern and then this pattern, you could do this variation, you could do this, especially as you start to get into doing it across 5, 6, 7, 8 patterns, the options become endless. But yes, I like the idea and the way we teach is fundamental patterns. Push, pass, whip. Okay, great. Which variations off those do we have? How can we combine things? What styling options can we layer on? So I like that suggestion. Megan is pulling out our West Coast pattern tree. So that's one thing we are working on in the background. It's going to be slow going. A lot of the nerdy engineering types, the analytical types, and I see things a little bit analytical, but I'm not actually an engineer. The analytical types, you know, want to see the flow chart. This goes to this, goes to this, goes to this, and in Ballroom, that's all written out in the little gray book. You've heard me talk about that before. So we are trying to create we call it a West Coast Swing pattern tree, and so we're trying to, I'm looking at it right now, and it's a big hunk of,
it's a mess.
it's a big hunk of mess. So
It won't be.
we're going to try to get this in a way that you can do that. And a little bit with the way we set out the site, if you're a member of our website, we try to break the patterns out. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, and pro moves. Beginner moves are basically all the fundamental patterns and kind of the basic standalone patterns that exist alongside of those. Something like a reverse whip. It's not the basic, but it is a single basic pattern that you can manage to learn if you've learned, say, a whip. In the beginner intermediate, we kind of go a little bit, slight bit more difficult. In the intermediate level, now we're kind of getting into patterns that you'd learn at most workshops. As we get to the advanced level, we tend to try to put series together, like where you take a pattern, because at this point, I've expected you've danced for a good long time and you know a reverse whip. So you go, hey, we've got this option from this hand and we can thread it to this, and we try to give 3, 4, 5 options. So if you're a member of the site, you'll see that type of flow. More questions?
So Brian brought up everyone is using Zoom for things, yoga classes, private dance lessons, workouts, etc. What platforms are you using with success?
Yeah, so Brian says everyone's using Zoom for things, yoga classes, private dance lessons, workouts. What platforms are we using for success? We have our own website. That's kind of the core of what we have. I think there's 603 videos. 604 videos at last look, all sorted. It's really, really cool. So you can head over to westcoastswingonline.com, and it's not only West Coast Swing, it's West Coast Swing and two-step and cha-cha and East Coast and nightclub and waltz coming soon. There's technique videos, tons of stuff. It's all sortable. It's got a really cool search feature. It's actually more intuitive, easier than YouTube. I like YouTube quite a bit. Facebook is not the best for that type of format, but at least gets us to communicate with people.
But with our live
But we are
classes,
using
we're
eCam.
Yeah, so so we're live streaming it through YouTube and Facebook. Those are the platforms that I like. I've not used Zoom for a lot of like businessy meetings. I'm not super familiar with it.
No, but you're using eCam for YouTube.
eCam,
Yeah.
and then we're looking into Restream because one of our friends, Kelly, uses that and loves it for his podcast thingy.
So that's what we are using. What's you can feed us the questions, Ben. You're better at that.
Do you provide videos for dance participants for whenever they get weekend passes for Nulu and Derby City Swing?
Yes, we have free video. We have the option to, at Nulu, we have the option to buy an entire workshop video where all of the workshops were put together, but other than that, it is free and open, and we encourage everyone to share as much video as possible. I think Brian's been promoting free video for quite some time.
Yeah, so I was typing. The question was about free video. Yeah, so I have a theory, and I've been on the record, and some people got mad at me, and I've got a friend who sells videos at events, but I really think that live video or free video is the way to go at dance events, for sure. I think West Coast Swing has benefited greatly. I taught overseas in the early 2000s, like a lot of West Coast swing and two-step, and it was very sparsely attended because there was no real way to see that stuff. And then when YouTube came online, what, 2005-ish? When did YouTube become a thing? Like in the mid-2000s, YouTube became a thing, and then what happened was now everyone could see that video and get inspired, and as the videos became popular with Facebook started to incorporate videos into their algorithm, and so did YouTube. That stuff flew around, and it was...
Still does.
And it still does. So I think specifically like the ballroom and the country world are a little bit behind that because they're still typically charging in some sort of way. I think the country world's coming around more and trying to have like video passes and let people use their phones, but there's all sorts of problems because like, okay, I'm gonna pay $25 to film with my phone, and then a parent comes in and has been able to film their daughter doing gymnastics and pulls out her phone, and so there's the parent, and I paid my $25, and I look at the person next to me filming. She doesn't know. She's just doing what she thinks is okay, and then I get aggravated because I paid the $25, and she gets aggravated because she doesn't know that she had to pay the $25, and so I've been championing free video, and I still think that that's going to be the way it's going to go.
Just a request to, whenever we're doing moves, kind of like you do with the line dances, you always turn with the leaders back to the camera. Can you do it with the leader and the followers back to the camera a little bit more in the videos?
Yeah, so the question was, can we do with the leaders and followers backs to the cameras, like in terms of teaching it this way, the patterns? Yeah, we can try to do that. I try to be cognizant of a lot of things to think about. A lot of things to think about on the fly. So this way, you can typically look at the screen and function this way. When I think that it's like necessary to see something like the slot, we turn this way, but sometimes the physical struggle of being too close and too far from the camera sometimes becomes an issue.
I think for the most part we do it in the basic videos, but when we get to more intermediate patterns, we stray away from that. So perhaps we will try and do a better job in the intermediate videos to do that.
Cheo and Michelle just wanted to let you know that they've been following along. They're both subscribed, and they think you all are awesome teachers, and they wanted to say thank you.
Someone wanted to say thank you, and they're subscribers. So thank you, because you let us do what we do, and it lets us continue to put lots of effort towards this, and then we learn more stuff, and we produce more cool stuff for you guys. And so it's even though we're into a lot of stuff, 2 studios, a couple events, dance cruises, this has been, these guys will say it, the most fun thing that I do for sure in dancing in the last number of years.
West Coast swing teachers often talk about the importance of rolling through the feet. However, I do not often see champions do it when I watch videos of their Jack and Jill.
Oh, great question. So this person says that their teachers are often talking about rolling through their feet, but they don't see a lot of the champion and high-level dancers doing it when they dance. They do. And I've talked about this from timing. We talk about 2, 4, 6, and 8 being core timing, and I could dance through very methodically, and you could see that timing. At a high level, what happens is, I use the word acknowledge. They acknowledge the timing. They might not get to count 2 and stand there clear through the entire beat. They might ebb and flow that timing, that they're on the step that would be count 2, but they're there for a sliver of time. But they're able to ebb and flow the timing to acknowledge the position, get to a functional position to do the turn or whatever they need to do, and to the naked eye, it looks like they're not doing any kind of timing whatsoever. But if I were to slow down and be able to show where the beats are, it's shocking how good they are at acknowledging those things. So to your rolling through the feet comment, it's a very articulate position that's difficult to see. And when we do it, right, like literally we, and then when you, the student, like you'll see clunky rolling through because we're not super good at it. But what ends up happening at the highest level is they're using that same skill set, and it looks like they're stepping flat-footed, but their ability to control their weight from one foot to another and manage the weight through the foot. Megan Dance is pretty...
If they look smooth, they're rolling through their foot.
Boom. A woman of few words. Yeah. So Megan Dance is quite straight-legged, but from even like ballroom dance background and skating and that stuff, like the ability to move from foot to foot is there. So there's a lot of things that those high-level dancers do that doesn't come across when we watch them, but it's actually there, and it's actually shocking. There are plenty of teachers who teach stuff that they don't do. That exists as well.
Nice, very true.
Yeah, that's not one of them, though, I don't think in general.
So talking about the West Coast tree pattern tree, is that something that would make sense to do for two-step, and are you looking to do that?
Yes, so talking about the West Coast Swing pattern tree, they said, is that something you could do for two-step? Yes. We're working on a pretty...
So many things.
Yeah, we're working on a bunch of two-step resources, and as we're doing our homework, it's kind of funny because I'm in the Country Dance Hall of Fame, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. The street dances like salsa and two-step and Argentine tango and West Coast swing, because they're not written down in a little gray book somewhere that everyone agreed upon 50 years ago, the lineage and the patterns and the structure are not as clear. So we are actually actively, like literally this week, working on some of that stuff, because we all, and it's going to take some homework, right? I have to go into the old timers, and I've got some dance historians that I'm going to use to help understand, and we are actively working on that. Do you have any thoughts on that? You're from Texas. Shouldn't you automatically be good at two-step?
I mean, I think I am good at two-step.
She's Australian. She's good at two-step. Why is she good? She's weird.
Because you guys have been doing country a long time. And the Texas two-step is different than the two-step that we teach, so. Exactly. Hold your beer and dance your two-step. What was the question? Oh, yeah, no, the tree is going to happen. It will be added to the list, and it's actually going to be probably easier than West Coast, but I think that's a great idea and a great resource that we can add to the mix once we get all these things going. That's all I got to say about that.
Just be like me and ramble.
Or
Ben can fire you another question.
Yeah, give me another question. Smash it.
They're asking about more variations from the two-step basics.
I like it. I like variations. Oh, do you want to talk now?
Yeah. Yes. We're actively working on some stuff for two-step. I think the struggle for two-step is a little bit the struggle for West Coast Swing too, where the basic is inherently hard, right? Like walk, triple, and connecting forward and back, like that's hard. Two-step, quick, slow, that's not hard. But the next thing you do is spin like a banshee. So it's tricky. It's tricky to have easy stuff. And so yes, that is definitely something we're going to look at and you guys are actually going to help us. I don't know what we're doing here.
I caught a piece of fuzz.
A little fuzz.
Dog hair.
We have learned an incredible amount through doing these videos because we've been able to interact with literally tens of thousands of people through videos, and over the years we've had more exposure, and it's accelerated our understanding of the dance community as a whole within the West Coast Swing world. So I look forward to doing that process with you guys for the country dances, even though like we're experts at that. There's a ton to learn in terms of moving people along that path in mass, and what are the struggle points, and how do we address them, and what's the progression, and so that is in the mix.
Do you want to address Brian's question for YouTube?
Yeah, so Brian had...
Sitting in music selections, and then putting together musicality.
That's Facebook. You were on YouTube.
Here we go. I'm in trouble. Pull it up.
No, it's Facebook.
It was Facebook. See, I was right. I
YouTube.
stand corrected. So Brian said, can you read it to me? I can't find it.
He's asking about sending in music selections and then somebody making a clip for you to do musicality with Jack and Jill tune.
Oh, Lord.
That'd be
So
fun.
sending in music selections.
Yep, so like Brian or myself or somebody could do it, and you just get to play the song for the first time and dance to it, and you have to be musical.
Oh.
And then he would splice it together.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Oh.
we did for the challenge thingy.
Shit.
But it would be
You just have
Brian
to
on the
download
spot.
Yeah, so the idea is...
Again, I can do it.
Bad microphone.
I love that idea.
People would send in music clips, and then it would basically be a little 30, 45-second Jack and Jill, and we just have to dance to it and be musical. Yeah, and I think that'd be a good, you know what, my brain you can see how my brain works. My brain takes the idea. Sometimes I come up with a crazy idea about this, and then I unpack it and I go, how can I package that back in like our system? I would probably do that, and then I would unpack the way I thought about it as a learning tool.
I think it's a great idea, and we'll figure out how to do it.
There you go.
That's all you needed to say.
Ms. Emily is just sad because our events are on ice, and she likes to organize events, and it's
I love the events.
sad
You like
times.
the events too.
I do. Derby City Swing. I would make you guys all come to Derby City Swing because it's awesome. It's the last weekend in January, and it's awesome. It's really cool. We theme it with the Derby, and we have bourbon bottles on the empty bourbon bottles on the tables. And no, I didn't drink all of them. I had to buy them, a lot of them. Maybe I drank a lot of them.
Fight that.
Over the course of years, yeah. So it's a really cool event. It's very social. One of the things, and when we come back, this is something that we've hit on, and when we do traveling workshops, we try to get people to do this, and it's not common. When we go to workshops, right, at dance events or regular workshops, typically they run the workshops for an hour, and then end 5 minutes early, and then run to the next workshop, and end 5 minutes early, and run to the next workshop, and it burns all of us out. It burns out the teachers, it burns out the students. It's tough. So at Derby City Swing, and I stole this idea from a line dance event that I went to years and years ago, where they had a workshop and like a 30-minute break, or even we have an hour break.
Fridays are an hour, Saturdays are 30 minutes.
Yeah, so we have 30 minutes to an hour. So then, whether it's an event or a workshop, take your pick. Let's say it's a 30-minute break. You have a good decompression period. That 30 minutes, you can spend some time asking questions to the teachers because it's not 3 minutes to run to the next workshop. You got 30 minutes. If it's an event, you got enough time to go grab a quick sandwich, run upstairs, take a quick shower, practice what you've learned, sit down and talk to your friends, and it prevents the burnout. You do get less classes, and it's always been a win in my experience. It works great for our workshops. When we've traveled and people have asked for our input, I always do that. And one of the struggles for the event directors is they feel like
Social versus the competitive thing too.
yeah, it's very much for the social stuff, which the people taking the workshops are typically largely the social dancers, right? And to me, they make up the kind of crux of the community, the big base. And some of the pushback that we've got is that you won't have as many workshops on your schedule. But we've never had that comment in 7 years. No one has ever said,
Not even at Nulu.
yeah, no one's ever said, man, I wish I had more workshops. They actually say the opposite. They say, man, I really enjoy it better. The burnout level stays back. They feel refreshed. They're excited. There's plenty of time to decompress and learn. It even adds interaction with your staff because it lets us be able to talk in between workshops, because even if I don't have a workshop the next hour, Miss Emily's come into the workshop, but she's got to run in 3 minutes and be in some room, and she's got to look at a schedule. And so add that back in. Workshop distancing.
Speaking of workshops, Gordon wants to know if we provide special post parties for Derby City Swing and Nulu.
So, Gordon, good question. Do we provide special post parties for Derby City Swing and Nulu? In short, no. In short, no. We have a little bit of a pre-party, but I would love to have some sort of a situation. I see Jen watching. Hello, Jen. Your children are sitting right off camera to the right.
Their homework.
My sister joined in, and my niece and nephew are sitting off camera to the right. We'll have them say hi before they go. What were we talking about?
Post party.
Post parties. I would love to do that in Louisville. Our Derby City Swing is in the winter. It's a little chilly. We don't get much snow here, but it's not a ton to do. But the May event,
We didn't do anything this past year because it was Mother's Day.
we haven't done it. And typically for us, it's such a struggle. And we're so stinking exhausted by the end of it that we're packing up and we literally sleep for like 12 hours. And it's rough. It's a rush, but it's rough. I would love to possibly, when this thing opens up and we get back to things, do some sort of a small workshop where those of you guys who follow us from around can come to Louisville. We can do a cool workshop in person, small group, and then as a group we can go to Churchill Downs and see a race, and we can go to the Bat Museum, and we can go to Bourbon Distillery. We can kind of combine some learning with some fun stuff, because I love all that stuff. I actually love this city, and I would love to show it off. So that's in the future, probably not after our events though, probably in a smaller event.
When events happening?
What level is needed to effectively participate at dance events? Great question. Beginner. So in our studio, it's one big room, so we have a wall that we roll down the middle. And so I tell, when people can move out of beginner class and come to the intermediate side, and they can feel functional dancing there. So if you can social dance at all, you're good to go for an event. That being said, there's one thing that's going to happen your first time every time. It's overwhelming. It is overwhelming your first time. I don't care how good you are or how good you're not. When you walk in a room and you see 500 people that look like they know what they're doing, it's intimidating. There's an email that I send out pretty regularly about my first time going to an all West Coast swing dance in Chicago, and I was petrified. And for the next year, every time I went to an all West Coast swing event, I thought everyone knew what the heck they were doing, and I was the only person. And as it turned out, I was a professional dancer. I'm pretty good at it. So I was pretty good, but I was petrified. So that is a normal thing. You're going to go through that the first time you go to an event. That's okay. Everyone goes through it. Second thing I would put to that is there are events on the schedules that cater to a social dancer. Like Derby City Swing is very welcoming for beginners. It has quite a healthy competition, but it does not have that overly competitive vibe. There are events that, should I name names? There are high-level events that just have a vibe, and they're the best of the best events. Some of them are the biggest events ever, but they're not specifically geared for the first-time goer. And a lot of them, they do make a good reach out. So I would recommend, if you're going to go to a first-time event, ask around. Ask around to what a good event is. Like in our city, we now have Derby City Swing, our own event, but our friends Jason and Sophie right up the road, about 90 minutes up the road, 2 hours up in Cincinnati, they've run a social event called, Swing and Dance Party, right? Really fun social event. When we first started going there and bringing our students, I remember having to convince people that later became professional dancers. I had to convince them. What's that? Yeah, I have the Swing and Dance Party Most Spirit Studio Trophy sitting over here. But in the beginning, I had to convince people to go, and they were petrified. They didn't want to they thought getting a hotel room to go dancing was so weird. And so they drove up and back. And at its height, we were bringing 50 and 60 people to that event. And it was a great entry, and some of those early people that we had to take kicking and screaming later became high-level competitors and teachers and all that stuff. So ask around, find an event that people around you recommend. You'll be a little intimidated, but if you can social dance, you can do it.
There's also, I think, probably more in the swing community. There are events like Derby City Swing that have straight beginner track lessons. So if you look for those, I believe Cincy Westy Bash, Jason and Sophie, another one of their events, they have I don't know if it's free, but ours is free. So if you have never learned the dance before, we do West Coast two-step and nightclub. Yep. So even if you've done a little bit of West Coast and you feel comfortable with that, if you want to try two-step, if you want to try nightclub, there are other options for that too. So you can literally, we had a couple of people, friends of dancers in the studio come, they'd never danced before, and they did the free lessons, free beginner lessons at Derby City Swing this past year. So you don't need to know anything. If you're willing to give it a shot, check those out too.
Looking for your thoughts on something. They feel like doing the basics is pretty difficult, but the more they do, doing the basics well is pretty difficult. But the more they do, the more they feel like the basics are very important. What are your all's thoughts?
Oh, so this person finds the basics very difficult, but they find the more that they do it, the more they realize that it's important. What are my thoughts? Yes. There are 4 levels to dancing: beginners, intermediate, advanced, and then knowing your beginner shit really well. That's the highest level, right? So all of us kind of go through, and we go through the levels, and we kind of learn the basics, and we move to intermediate class, then we might start doing some competition stuff, and then we go to a really high-level coach, and they go, oh, by the way, here's how you do a sugar push properly. Here's how you hold your waltz frame properly. Here's how you lower your weight and waltz properly. Here's how you do a cha-cha lock step properly. So I always say to my students, you hear me say this all the time, like, you're going to pay the price, right? You're going to go beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then get your head knocked off and have to learn the beginner stuff again. That's a path that pretty much most people take. If you spend some dedicated time the entire time on your basics, because look, we don't want to do sugar pushes forever. We want to get out there and dance. But if you spend a portion of your time consistently working on your basics, kind of like that West Coast swing drill that we did, the practice West Coast swing, you can then layer on. Hey, it's going to take me a while to learn all those steps. Great. Once you know them, can you know them cold? Awesome. Can you do them in count and 2-beat increments? Can you do them in count and straight 8s? Can you do them in hitch every walk? Can you style every anchor step? And you can just keep building on that basic set. If you're one of my jiu-jitsu coaches, Brent, used to call it his workspace. So you actually, shout out to Brent Weedman, former professional mixed martial artist, brilliant guy actually. And he would teach me a technique, and he would go, well, we're going to use this basic thing as my workspace. So that's why I use the sugar push a lot of time as my workspace, because we all know it. And then within that, we can work on counting straight 8s. We can work on styling your anchor steps.
That's one of the things we'll talk about in how to find your own style.
Yes, we've got a class, how to find your own style. Are you guys doing that? Are you doing that? Am I doing that?
I don't know.
Undecided. I'll be gone a couple days for some family stuff.
It's where you would be here.
What else we got, Benjamin?
Kiko says, long time no see in Japan.
Kiko, hello. I miss Japan. I hope you guys are doing well. I had the opportunity to travel to Japan several times, maybe 7 or 8 times over the years. Probably not for almost a decade, but that was really, really cool. Really, really, really great country. I really enjoyed it. Dancers are very dedicated. I got to stand at the base of Mount Fuji. Some really cool memories. The late Hiro Suzuki and my friend Yukiko Ohashi, the first Japan. I don't know if she's no. I don't think she's the first Japanese superstar. But yeah, so a lot of great memories. Thank you for reminding me.
So now that Jordan, Tatiana, and Benji have retired from competition, do you see somebody coming up and dominating the way they did?
Oh, great question. Do you have any thoughts? Now that we see Benji Schwimmer, the great Benji Schwimmer, and Jordan Tatiana retiring from competition, they were like perennial winners and great proponents of the dance at its highest level. Do we see another person coming up and dominating? Do we see someone coming up and dominating?
I mean, aren't Gary and Susan kind of already doing that?
Yes.
Yes?
So, yes.
I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, okay. I think Gary and Susan are kind of filling that role, not to, Jordan and Tatiana have a very distinct style. I think Gary and Susan have kind of found their own style, talking about that same thing. But I think that they are continuously trying to kind of up their game. I used to work in the same studio that Gary and Susan practiced out of, and you would see them all the time try and kind of bring in different coaches for different perspectives, and just see how one person takes one thing and they can kind of mix it up. So I think they also have influences from Jordan and Tot and Benji. So I think that they are kind of carrying on that. I think Ben and Victoria, I don't know if she was injured at some point. I think he was as well. I think that they have a cool style about them. Nicole Clonch, Benji's ex-partner, who is a bad mama jama, she killed it this past year. They won Showcase. I think it was her and her boyfriend, Tybalt. They killed it, so I think that they are alive and kicking. So I think probably Showcase, my guess would be them. I think I'm sure she's coached by Benji, so all of his artistic capabilities and musicality and all of that, I'm sure will kind of live through them and beyond. What are your thoughts, Brian B?
What are my thoughts? I think that we don't appreciate what we got with the two of them. And so now, talking to some dance historians and kind of understanding my own 20 plus years in dancing, I've gotten a little bit better perspective. And there's a secret that they have that is kind of it's extremely difficult to achieve, and that is consistency. One of the hallmarks that no one ever talks about with both of them is that they just showed up, right? They showed up whether they were dating, not dating, whether they had stuff going in their life, whether they had injuries, whether they got along or didn't get along, whatever happened in real life, they kept showing up. for a long period of time. And that's a big key that you see a lot of partnerships that don't. And I've got some friends, I'll leave the names off, but there were magical partnerships that could have been the quote unquote next, right? But life gets in the way and they grow in different directions, they get married, kids. So one of the magical things that I think both of those guys don't get the credit that they deserve, in the case of Jordan and Tatiana, they stayed together as a partnership through thick and thin for a long, long time. That's number one. Number two, they have a magical something that is difficult to create, that even in the amazing brilliance of Gary and Susan, there's just some brilliance that we all kind of can't put our finger on that Jordan and Tatiana brought us, and that stuff does not come along. If you look at all dance sports, you will see amazing champions, right? There'll be someone that sits in second place and eventually become a champion, but there are very few people that break through and kind of redefine a dance, and Benji the same way, and Benji in a little bit of a different way because he was like the engine, right? Like he kept going, whether it was regardless of the partnerships and yeah, like with a bunch of, so there are certain dancers that continue that path, like that will have multiple partners through their career and continue to be at the top of the dance sport. And there's an amazing drive that those people have, but the ability to hold it together as a partnership, just to dance as a professional partnership and be consistent. There's a lot of people in dance forms that are not the champions, but they're in the top 5 and they're just there. And there's an amazing amount of consistency that some of those people don't get credit for. To be in the top 5 of a dance sport for the better part of a decade is an incredible experience. Like, how long have you guys been dancing together? As a professional partnership? 2-ish years? Yeah. And like,
a little time in the middle.
Yeah.
And Megan and I started dancing when she was, how old are you now?
31.
31, when she was 15. So we basically danced every week together since she was 15. And we had a professional partnership for a little over 2 years, 27 months. 27 months. And that was a hard push of 27 months of pretty much every day in the studio, you know, through life. And that's a difficult thing to do. And we basically got burnout. Like, it's difficult to sustain. So there's my thoughts on the magicalness of Jordan and Tatiana. And I don't know who will break through and be the next decade will tell.
What is the difference between Derby City Swing and New Open?
What is the difference between Derby City Swing? That's our World Swing Dance Council event. So it is a typical, has all the Jack and Jills and Strictly Swings and routine divisions and stuff that you would see at a big West Coast Swing event. It's been as high as 600 people. It sits in the mid 500 to 600. So it's a good big event. It's very social. We do have some two-step and nightclub workshops, but it's predominantly a West Coast Swing social event. The Nulu Open was our bid at having a, my nephew's wandering around back there, was our bid to have a UCWDC event, and they did not sanction us. So that event actually has predominantly country competition, some fun West Coast Swing Jack and Jills, but predominantly country competition. And then the social dancing is much more split, 50-50 social dancing, 50-50 between West Coast and like two-step, nightclub, East Coast cha-cha, that type of stuff. So that's the difference.
Do we go to the U.S. Open? And why?
Do we go to the U.S. Open? Fun stat. Megan, have you been to the U.S. Open? No. Have I been? No. I do want to go to cover it for West Coast Swing Online at one point. However, we do have a U.S. Open champion among us. Tell your story.
I've been to the U.S. Open. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of the Go Dance swing team. So it was all the instructors, I think 1 or 2 admin staff who had jumped into the dancing role. And we went in 2013. We won the U.S. Open team division. It was a whole bunch of work. It was choreographed and coached by Gary and Susan. There were 16 of us, I believe. 8 couples? Yes. So 16 of us. A lot of people's interjections. It was a very interesting team, but the hard work paid off, and I have a U.S. Open title, so that's pretty darn cool. It was baller.
You're now the artistic director for West Coast Swing Online. I'm stepping down. Congratulations.
Okay.
It's cool. It's legit. Yeah, like if you've ever watched the teams,
Never happened.
Google like U.S. Open, because I signed the check on the front. If you want to sign the checks for me, I'm good with that. So, yeah, if you guys like YouTube U.S. Open teams and you watch the level of teams.
Ben will drop it in the link below.
Bingo. Yeah, find that.
YouTube it.
It's pretty.
2013 U.S. Open team division.
It's pretty bad, Mama Jama. So, and we said this once before, to put a scope. Emily's an amazing dancer, but on that team, there was Gary and Susan, the current U.S. Open champions, Bernadette Carmichael, who is a Masters world champion.
Country.
To put that in perspective, it's the only couple that we've never beat them. Never beat Bernie and Sloan. The only couple we've never beat in country dancing as a partnership. So that puts the level of, and then there were other amazing dancers in and around on that team. So
I was the third best. And I was the first girl to walk out. So you'll see my strut if you watch it.
yeah, so it's a good accomplishment. Anytime you put something on the floor like that at that level,
It's pretty entertaining. There's flips, tricks, turns, West Coast swing. It's got it all. There's no swing violation.
All right. So, I found out that by learning the follower step, it helped me with my lead, but my instructor discouraged this approach. What are your thoughts?
so this person was a follower.
No, they're a leader.
Was a leader and wanted to learn the follower step because they thought that it would improve their dancing, and their instructor discouraged the approach. I have two thoughts. Number one, if you have a good relationship with your instructor, and if you do have someone that you value, they're your best resource, right? And this person, your instructor, does not have to be the world champion of something, but if they have dance knowledge, they've produced good dancers, and more importantly, you have a good rapport with them, and you can understand. So I would ask, before I would make a judgment, I would say, why is that? And they'll go, oh, well, because I think that you need to do this in your own part first, and at this point, I think it's the most effective for you to move over and learn the follower's role, right? Because we all know it is very valuable to know both roles. Yes. But there might be a reason, so I'd want to know what the reason is, right? And from there, if you kind of vibe on that and you jive on that and you can understand the checkpoints that they have for you, that would be a good way to approach it. So I can't say if it's a good idea or a bad idea. It would depend on the situation. But I think asking why, because I would say someone who blanket said, no, don't ever learn the other person's role. But there might be a reason, and I'm going to use an example for Ben. In Ben's career, he once came and said, hey, to improve, I was thinking about dancing with this other person to improve my dancing. And I said, well, if your goal is to improve with this person, I think your time's better spent here, right? If you only have X number of hours to dance and X number of time in the car to drive to practice, I think it's better suited down this path, right? Now, if he says, yeah, but I've maxed this out and I've got all this other free time and I want to do this over here, then maybe that would have been an idea. So there's usually a reason. So I would ask your coach as to why the reason is.
Yeah, I mean, the question was, or your
thoughts on
learning the other part. Yeah, I think it's important to know your part cold first. So perhaps that's what your teacher was talking about. And then, because if you're having difficulty with that, then learning the other side will probably completely blow your mind. So I think first, understanding your own part is essential, and then moving on to the other side is helpful, but only after you've mastered your footwork.
Yeah.
They appreciated the way to interact with the coach as well.
Yeah, that's a big one, and that's kind of missing a little bit. Like if we don't have that experience, if I grew up in athletics, and then of course dancing taught me quite a bit, and then about 12 years ago, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at a pretty high level. But when I walked in, I was a complete beginner. I knew nothing. And so it was fun for me as a teacher to go back in as literally a nervous beginner, and I got my gi, and I was like, this is the wrong size. And like, no, silly, that's the way it's supposed to fit. And they're like, but my belt is way too big. And like, no, silly, you're supposed to put it on the front before. And my belt keeps getting untied. Well, there's a specific way you're supposed to tie it. Like, there were so many things. The guy, like just so many awkward things. Like I didn't know you needed to wear a cup. Like just like guys are going to my day. Yeah, like, but it's that like that stupid nervousness that you walk in, and it was great for me to do as a teacher because I knew how to learn, and I knew that I would have to be humble and that I'd be kind of stupid for 2 years. And I watched my ego get in the funny ego story. I did speaking of someone jumping in here from Japan, my student friend from Japan, Yuki. I said, Yuki, I won my first jiu-jitsu competition. And she goes, newcomer division? And I'm like, yeah, I was the white belt division, but I won. I'm a bad mama jama. And I remember winning that competition, and I wouldn't let any of my friends go because I didn't know if I was going to get my ass kicked. So I was, and shout out to jiu-jitsu there, Jakester. My first jiu-jitsu comp story. And so it turned out I was pretty good at it at like the newcomer level. And so after I won, I was kind of feeling good, and the experienced guys in the gym, they looked at me and like, man, you're going to be really nasty in like 2 or 3 years. And I remember thinking like, what do you mean 2 or 3 years? I just won the newcomer Jack and Jill. What are you talking about? I'm a bad mama jama. Like, so my ego was involved, but the teacher in me knew that I had a good couple years before I was even had a good fundamental base and understanding. And the story went, I won all of my white belt competitions and proceeded to get chewed up as a new blue belt until I learned some stuff, which when I look back on video, I'm like, oh my God, it's so simple.
Like newcomer and then
Yeah.
stuck in novice.
Yeah, it's the same thing. For those of you guys who are competitors, like I ran through all of my white belt competitions. I got to blue belt, and I was kicking the crap out of the guy, and he reversed me, and I lost by points, and then I was in the consolation thing, and the guy ripped my arm off, and I fake tapped, and then I didn't tap, and then my arm got ripped off, and at least thankfully that guy went on to win the, he's now a black belt. He was 16 though. I was 30 something, he was 16. 16, Jakester, the kid almost ripped my arm off.
Eric Zimmer says hello.
Hi,
gives you all
Eric.
virtual hugs and says Miss Megan needs to stay adorable.
Hello, Mr. Zimmer.
Miss you.
We miss you. I hope you guys are doing well.
Have you ever been to the swing event in New Jersey that's held in June every year?
Have I ever been to the swing event in New Jersey? I'm going to assume that is Liberty. And I went to the first couple Liberties. I was living in Boston at the time. If it's John Lindo's event, Liberty, I know the event well. So yeah, I was there the first couple years, but I've not been a number of years. A good friend of mine DJs there, Mr. Louis St. George. So every year I get the rundown when he comes back from the event, and I get to know what was going on, what's the vibe, how everything went. So I have been, but not recently. And we talked about this. We've kind of taken a lot of the West Coast Swing Competition events off of our schedule just from a pure time standpoint, right? Because we run a studio, and okay, so we have a couple of studio showcases, right? And then we lose a week for the UCWDC World Championships, and then we've got at least 4 other events for our students. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. What else is on it? Then we run 2 events. That's 9, right? And then a couple of workshops here and there, and then cruises. There's 3 cruises a year, and so pretty soon you're at half the, and then you try to take. I'll take big chunks of time off. Like I'll take, I took 2-week vacations in February, and I ended up with 2 more days off than a normal person, but that was after working every single day in the month of January, right? With some
That
sort
e-book.
of, that ebook.
Oh, the ebook.
Oh, the ebook.
That's all I got.
Hello, Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. We love Canada.
We do.
What else? Anything else, guys? Nothing. Give us a question. Any closing thoughts?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so tomorrow we're off. Monday, Tuesday, the girls are in charge. I've got some family stuff to take care of. Right? We got a little stuff to do for the family. Yeah, projects we're working on.
We're always working. If we're not
Yeah.
on camera, we're still
Yep.
working for you.
We are, yeah. That's all I got. There's got to be something else going on. Buy some of Emily's t-shirts.
Oh, yes, please.
They're cool. I see I'm wearing my Dance
And
West
they're
Coast Swing.
soft.
Yeah, this is quite
They're
nice.
good quality of shirt, which
Especially
is nice.
the girls shirts.
The slouchy tee. You see the slouchy tee.
There's a request for an update on cruises.
Request for an update on cruises. here's what we know and then what we can guess. The cruises have told us, I think the last official communication we had, I can't remember. It changes every day. It literally changes about every 48 hours. Gosh, I don't know. We are still booked for Alaska. Royal Caribbean has not told us anything different, but I think as this whole opening up unfolds, we will see where that goes. And then, questions are we still have one booked in October that we've got some people booked on, so that's still in the plans, but we're obviously monitoring the situation. It is very likely as cruising comes back online that we will continue doing dance cruises. The question will be, for those of you guys who don't know, we had a pretty good company going. We were doing 3, 4, maybe even 5 cruises of various, if you include all the little ones we did behind, like that weren't out in front of people. We were doing 3 to 5 cruises a year, and that was quite a bit of work and we have a full-time employee. My mom actually started working here for the studio 7 years ago. She moved over to work full-time for the cruise stuff, and we hired a new girl earlier this year to help part-time. So it will not work. It will not be at that scale moving forward for sure. But will we still do dance cruises? Yes. Probably likely kind of in-house, right, with this group as our staff, which for me works the best because we kind of work really well as a team. We all know our roles and the people that we kind of bring on board with us. So shout out to Eric Zimmer. The Zimmers were supposed to join us in Alaska, but as that started with like 166 people and it's devolved down to the Fab 40, the 42 people who said we're going to go down with a ship. So we're all still booked to go to Alaska mid-July, but whether or not that'll happen, we're still waiting to hear the official word from Royal Caribbean, and the goal line just keeps moving, and so we're staying apprised of the situation. I haven't made any big public statements because it's sort of like the Anthony Fauci coming online every day. Like every day there's new information and everything changes. So literally shout
out to that guy too.
He's great.
Dr. Fauci.
So if I came out and said, hey, this is what's going on, we're definitely doing this, it's going to change in 2 days. So we've been communicating to the people that are booked. October still seems safe right now. July is safe as far as we know, but there's a very strong likelihood that won't happen, and there'll be refunds from Royal Caribbean and all that jazz.
Can Emily design some West Coast swing face masks?
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
I have not unlocked that type of merchandise. Sorry. But I believe I'm going to start making, I've unlocked some things. So we're going to test some things out, perhaps coffee mugs and hats. And Jen, the t-shirts range from about $24 to $30. But if you use the promo code DANCE, you get 10% off.
Jake, would you wear one of our West Coast Swing t-shirts? No.
There's one with an anchor. We'll buy you one with an anchor. It's kind of like the shirt you're wearing right now, except better.
My nephew, do you guys know what Supreme is?
Come show your shirt.
No, how much did you spend for that Supreme t-shirt?
This was $80.
The white one.
Oh my God.
Oh, the white one?
Yeah.
It was $330.
Do you want to see? I'm proud of this.
Work.
I'm proud of this kid because
You
your parents are legit.
You're not gonna
You got to scooch down. Here, sit. Sit.
share a seat.
This is Jake, and Jake worked. It's my nephew. And first you worked, your first job, you saved up how much to buy a computer?
I saved up $2,500.
$2,500.
Took 8 months.
8 months to buy a $2,500 computer.
6 months was off like weird jobs. So basically, I shoveled driveways and I mowed a couple lawns and I did really odd jobs. And 2 months, I got a job. The second I turned 14, I was like, I am getting a job. It took 2 months for me to get the 20. It took 2 weeks, 2 months to get $1,400. And then.
That's legit. And so now your mom makes you save, what, half your money? You have to save half of it?
Yep, spend half, save half.
And so you guys went to Europe,
Yes.
and you were allowed to spend half your money.
Well. Yeah, it was a little more than that. I spent a good amount of money.
He bought, this is impressive because you saved up and you did all the right stuff, and you bought a $380 basically like wife beater looking T-shirt.
No, that's a lie. No, that summer I made a plan when I went to Europe. I was like, look, I set out, and my mom, my parents, everyone else can vouch for me. I made this whole list. I was like, this is what I'm buying. This is my expenses, and it all worked out.
That's legit.
Yeah,
Took out a loan from his parents.
There you go. We need to get you in a. Gordon says you're young and handsome.
wow, Gordon Liu, my man. Thank you.
All right, switch out with your sister. Brookinator.
Jennifer Wilkinson, thank you. No.
No loan.
No loan.
That's Jenna's.
Who knows?
And this is Brooke. We'll make the cameo appearance. How are you, Miss Brooke?
Good, how are you?
That's good. So you're like the athlete of the family.
No, I guess.
You are.
Yeah.
You do silks.
Yeah,
And you're kind of competitive.
yeah.
Super competitive. Anyways.
Cool.
Any other questions? Nope. We got the cruises covered. We got the styling covered. Maybe not the styling covered. I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I'm not wearing your impressive, amazing, cheap, great.
Oh, they are amazing and not cheap. They're very good quality
No,
shirts.
cheap as in they are cheap to
Affordable.
buy. Yes.
They are
Affordable.
affordable.
You need to work on your marketing. You should pay attention to Uncle Brian.
$24
Affordable.
is a great price for a
It is a
T-shirt.
fantastic price. I think that's closer to like.
Gordon says you're pretty.
Oh, thank you.
I think you look like your mom. I looked outside
Very
today,
much so.
and I was like, oh my God, it's a mini Jen.
Thank you.
Bingo. Do a flip. Can you do a flip across the back? All
Mom says.
Okay.
right, we're going to end.
I don't know if you can do whatever you want.
Do some athletic stuff to show us how we're old. We're going to end. Yeah.
It's from that.
Okay, so from
So do it in there.
Yeah, you go right in the middle. You're good.
Blue to blue.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Shut up. And on that note, wash your hands. Bye, guys. We love you. Thanks for the support. Send us a question on email.